Hello and welcome to PS4 O'Clock. This week I'm talking about everything you need to know about PS4 with editor of official PlayStation magazine, Ben Wilson. Okay, so I'm here with Ben, editor of official PlayStation magazine.
Hello.
And we're going to go through basically sort of like a essential list of everything you need to know about the PS4, starting with the price and date, which we know is £349, and at the moment it's still holiday 2013. So winter time, but we do know that a bunch of Dutch retailers all apparently have information from Sony that it's going to be November the 13th. Sony have said that's sort of speculative, but they haven't outright sort of denied it.
Yeah, I can't see it being that far either side of that date. October seems maybe a little early, maybe late October is a possibility, but certainly for Christmas you want at least a month in the run-up to that to sell as many consoles as possible, so we think mid-November makes the most sense, and the 13th would tally with that quite handily. Yeah,
and there's lots of sort of circumstantial evidence, like the most obvious one being the Assassin's Creed 4 director famously quoted as saying that the PS3 and the PS4 versions will ship at the same time, which kind of implies he's expecting them to come out at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does make total sense.
So yeah, so hopefully you'll be playing on your PS4 sort of end of November kind of time, having spent 349 quid in it. We also now know what's going to be in the box, and the list that Sony have issued is that there will be a PlayStation 4, unsurprisingly.
Really?
There'll be a 500GB hard drive, which Shuhei Yoshida has tweeted will be replaceable. No word yet on what kind of hard drive. I'm guessing it'll be another 2.5-inch SATA laptop style drive. So you get the PS4, there's one wireless controller, there's a mono headset, which is a sort of a single in-the-ear bud, which a microphone kind of hangs around your neck that you speak into. There's an AC power cord, there's an HDMI cable, and there's the USB cable that you sort of recognise from charging your DualShock from the past. The console itself is actually, ports-wise, is actually quite light. I'm surprised by sort of how little there is on it. I mean, you basically get 2 USB ports, 1 auxiliary port, which will run the camera and possibly other things in the future. There's an Ethernet connection, Bluetooth as well. There's an HDMI out port and a digital out optical for surround sound. And that's it, compared to sort of PS3's Portageddon, which had like just everything bristling on it. It's quite light. I guess that contributes to the lower costs.
If you want to play the old way with, is it component and composite, and you're basically...
Yeah, that's the only issue. I mean, I'm guessing by now most people have picked up sort of HD TVs, or at least so. HDMI in, so you know, component out is not so much of a big issue. I guess there will be a few people left out. Now, the other bits and pieces you're going to get with it, obviously you only get one controller, so if you want to sort of have 2 people playing, they've either got to bring their own or buy a new one. And
replacement controllers are really expensive. I think you have to
54 quid.
Yeah, 54 quid is a lot of money.
What are they at the moment? They're about sort of 30?
I think they're like 35, 40. They're the same price as the game at the moment. These look slightly more expensive.
Yeah, so 54 quid if you want a second controller. I'm trying to think of points of interest with the controller, really. There's obviously the touchpad is the big new thing. We know that now is 1920 by 900 resolution, which I've been told is quite big, so it'll be quite sensitive to use.
And I believe that those sticks are very slightly close together, so you don't have to stretch into the touchpad, which I think is a small but crucial detail.
And the precision of the buttons have been sort of addressed all over, so there's better sort of travel, there's less dead spots, they're more kind of springy and reactive. One interesting thing is that the face buttons are now no longer pressure sensitive, because Sony had said that the buttons weren't being used by the devs, they weren't making use of the sort of the pressure sensitivity. So they've got rid of that, which means that because there's less information being sort of transferred between the buttons and the controller, that's reduced the latency. There's a few other interesting things with this. For example, we've got the light bar at the front. Now, Vogelgar has sort of mentioned this will have kind of simple move capabilities. It won't be like a full move controller, but it will be able to, the PS3 will be able to tell where you are and react to sort of movement. It also changes colour. They've given examples of things like Killzone. It will sort of show your health, but it will also show which player you are on the PS4. And apparently it matches the colours of the face buttons, the X, the circle, the triangle. So player 1 will be blue, player 2 will be red, player 3 will be green, and player 4 will be pink. So so another controller, if you need it, will be £54. The other thing that doesn't come with the PlayStation 4 is the camera, and that's £44, which is surprising. It's a bit lower. Now this is a twin lens HD camera, which can do 3D because it's got 2 lenses, so it can separate you from the room. Examples have been given about how it could sort of lift you out of the background, you know, and detect where you are in a 3-dimensional space. One thing I think is interesting with the camera actually is that 60 frames a second, it will do 1200 by 800 pixels, so nice high resolution at 60 frames. But it's also got 2 other resolutions where if you go down to 640 by 400, it will do 120 frames a second. If you go down lower still to 320 by 192, it'll do 240 frames a second.
Yeah, it's strange. I don't really understand how.
The only thing I can think of is that means it's very, very precise if it's using it to detect movement. But yeah, anyway, it's also got an 85-degree range, like a field of view, so it will see a lot quite quickly, and it can see down to about 30 centimeters in front of it, so chances are wherever you put it, it'll see you. And this uses the auxiliary cable, so this is what plugs into that one auxiliary slot, and it comes with a 2-meter cable, so you can put it, a distance away if you want, which brings us on to the games. Now there are 3 confirmed launch games so far.
Well, that's first party. There's
first party, yeah.
You can do the launch.
Okay, so
yeah, first party ones.
Sony's launch games are going to be Knack, Killzone, Shadowfall, and Drive Club, with Second Son, Infamous Second Son, set for basically like a launch window. So I reckon sort of early 2004.
There's also third party ones. There's Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and then if you're a sports fan like me, not like Leon, you'll be jumping through hoops over the chance to play Madden 25, that is really its name, FIFA 14, NBA 2K14, and NBA Live 14. I believe The Witness as well, the Jonathan Blow game,
yes.
is also going to be a launch title. So there is I think people will add to that, first party will add to it, Sony will add to it. So I also missed out Need for Speed Rivals, I believe that's a launch game.
Yeah.
So already a plentiful list. Certainly the strongest of Sony's, or indeed probably any console launch in the last few years, when you factor in the third-party stuff as well. I think the really interesting thing will be to see how much those third-party games like Need for Speed and Assassins, how much different they are on PS4 compared to PS3.
Yeah.
I think obviously when you play Killzone Shadowfall or Drive Club, you'll know it's a next-gen game. You won't have anything out there to directly compare it with, whereas with the PS3, PS4 crossover games like Assassins and the 2 I've just mentioned, I think you're going to see a lot more crossover where they'll essentially feel like very similar games, but the graphics will be slightly spruced up for PS4. I know that's not true of FIFA. I believe Joel again played that at E3 and said that FIFA was a vast improvement, a very different game on next gen to PS3.
Yeah.
But I think those other crossover games you'll see. Basically, if you don't buy PS4 at launch and you buy the PS3 version of Ghosts or Battlefield 4, you probably aren't going to miss out on much.
One bit of good news with the games though is that the price Sony have confirmed will basically be the same as PS3. They've confirmed this sort of $55 recommended retail price in America. No UK price yet, but they're basically saying the price will carry over the same. There won't be any of these sort of £90 prices you saw on Amazon. I think people were just guessing wildly and just throwing out £80.
They'll be the same price. Games have been the same price, Leon, since we were young. Apart from a period in, I think, the late 90s where, was it maybe N64 games went up to 65 quid or something like that? Every other console has fallen into line with that sort of 30 to 50 quid price bracket, and I would be astonished if either of the upcoming ones bucked that trend.
One thing that also carried over from PS3 is DRM. Obviously, Sony have come out and said that as far as DRM, digital rights management, your ability to share games, trade them in, or whatever, it will stay exactly the same as it was on PS3, which means that Sony won't be using any kind of DRM or any kind of rights management. Third parties will be able to do what they want. I'd imagine after sort of the fallout that Microsoft had with Xbox One, I don't imagine anyone's going to be imposing anything.
Well, no, and interestingly, EA's sports boss Andrew Wilson came out yesterday and said that he basically proclaimed that online passes, which of course is still available if publishers want to do them, were a disaster, and they blocked too many people from playing games. They had really bad feedback on them. So when you've got a company of EA coming out and basically proclaiming that a sham and that they made the wrong decision, I don't think they'll revisit that. I think if EA turn around and say online passes are dead, then we can safely assume that most other companies will utilise that same model and you won't have to worry about that.
So while the prices and the DRM essentially are staying the same as they were on PS3 and just carrying over, one thing that has changed is that PS Plus is now something you have to pay for if you want to play online. Initially, I think some people might balk at, because obviously online's always been free on PlayStation, but Sony been doing a very good job recently of building up PlayStation Plus, giving away lots of free games like July. You've got Saints Row 3, Battlefield, and Payday. So it's $39.99 for a year. And Fergal Gar has sort of gone on record saying that they're trying to improve the network, they're trying to make it better, more stable, offer more features. So that's why they've made it now something you have to have if you want to play online. But I don't think that too many people will be too annoyed about it. For example, one of the things you're going to get with PlayStation 4 is Drive Club will be free to PlayStation Plus. So one of Sony's big PS4 launch games will be free if you're a PS Plus member.
Yeah, I think that what people forget is everyone likes a freebie, right?
Yeah.
And PlayStation historically has always been online, and of course everyone would rather have it for free than pay for it. What I would say about PS Plus is, as you've touched upon, you get great products free with it anyway, and having Drive Club free for a year, it essentially pays for itself. Even if you're not a massive racing fan, you're getting like a £50 game in return for your investment, as it were.
Yeah.
PS Plus always does a great job. I don't think Sony are going to take away services. We spoke to Phil Gagara for the issue of the mag, which is going on sale next week, and he was saying, that basically he's like guaranteed that people who spend the money in investing in PS Plus will basically be improving Sony's online infrastructure. And I think for all the publishers going forward, there's going to have to be even more investment online. You hear a lot about the cloud stuff on the Microsoft side. I think that money will get ploughed straight back in, and hopefully in sort of 2-3 years' time, you'll be able to see a tangible return on that in terms of the less games having server problems. Hopefully, with this investment, you'll see from first-party games less and less errors and issues like that.